Good evening. Welcome to Imitating this episode 7 of series 2. We've had a couple of weeks hiatus. We've all got things to deal with, including myself, and so we've just been away for a couple of weeks. So hope you've missed us. We've missed you too. We've got a couple of fantastic guests with us tonight, as always. Largo, you are a regular contributor to the show. How are we, mate? You good?
I'm happy, but am I technically a guest?
Well, you are a
colour commentator.
You're like the Tony Schiavone of this show, I think. Yes,
I'm not called play-by-play. You're the colour commentator. I do the tail of the tape.
Right, you're the Bobby Hayden then.
Yeah, I do the tail of the tape. You make the big announcements. I call collar and elbow tie up.
Well, tonight, on the greatest night in the history of our sport, right?
You do that, and then I say that's a knife edge chop, collar and elbow tie up in Seguri.
I guess this wondering what the hell we're on about. You're a wrestling man, Joe. I think you might have been. I don't know. Anyway,
Milt Lane actually was a wrestling referee.
Thank you, Largo. Also joining us tonight is one of my favourite boxing podcasters, one of the best boxing channels you see on YouTube, and I thoroughly recommend it. The host of Joe Stunner Boxing, Mr. Joe Stunner himself. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for coming in, and relatively short notice actually as well. We've had a couple of issues recently, which I'll go into in the green room after the show. Maybe, who knows. Anyone had any fun and games in the week? Largo, anything entertaining happened to you?
Yes, I'd just been for some sardines and it was lovely. I had 3 pints and 3 sardines, and now I smell of sardines, but it was a lovely evening.
Marvellous. Well, I did something similar in the afternoon after work because I've had a very stressful couple of weeks. So the main thing is you have a lie down, you have a couple of hours and not doing anything like that, and we're good. So, Joe, obviously we've had a bit of boxing news in the last couple of weeks, so do you want to go through what's caught your eye?
Well, the passing of Ricky Hatton was a sad piece of news. 46 years old, no kind of age, is it?
No.
Very good fighter, 2-weight world champ, Ring Magazine champ at 140, super lightweight. Beat a great fighter to win that title. In Kostya, defended it several times, lost 3 fights, which is negligible really. I mean, 2 of them were to Hall of Fame all-time greats, so that's a really sad bit of news. And of course it highlights the issue of mental health, addiction, emotional health, and so on.
Did Ricky Hatton have significant mental health problems?
Yeah, I think he did.
If you want to call depression, I suppose. I mean, I have a bone of contention with this phrase mental health, because I think a lot of the time people are talking about emotional health, self-esteem, so it all comes under one umbrella, mental health. But he had his problems, his issues, sorry, go on.
Was there any substance abuse issues?
Yes, in the past, and for all we know, it could have continued.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if I can just say about Ricky as well. I mean, I remember watching the Kostya fight, Joe, and it's one of the great fights I've ever seen as well. In terms of as a fight, it's just a standalone fight. It was a real sort of back and forth war between 2 great fighters, right? And both guys had their moments in it, and it was a very close fight indeed. And Ricky, showed that night that and Kostya was a great fighter as well. And Ricky showed that was the night that he showed that he didn't just belong in that company. He was capable of winning in that company. My view of Ricky was that was his peak. Actually, that was the very best he ever was. I think that. What you're saying is, when he lost the fight to Mayweather and Pacquiao, I would argue he was slightly past his best even by then. That's just my view. But for a few great years, he was one of the best British fighters there's ever been.
if you look at his performances just before he fought Zoo, I mean, I'm thinking of the Ben Taki fight. Ben Taki was like a teak, tough African guy. No one stopped him. And Ricky sort of shelved his usual gung-ho, intelligent gung-ho attitude. He wasn't a caveman, but he liked to go forward and fire his punches. He actually boxed really very, very well, and he used his brain in that fight. And I think you may have a point there. I mean, he probably was. Well, that was certainly his, the jewel in his crown of the Costa Zoo fight. He had some good performances after that, but Mayweather and Pacquiao, they are an absolute elite top. Ricky wasn't reached that level, but he certainly maximised his talent, which was considerable, and was a worthy, legitimate world champion.
For sure. I mean, the other thing with Mayweather is, something in a second, Mayweather had this knack of knowing when to fight a fighter as well. He had that thing. He might even have clocked that Ricky was slightly on the decline or whatever, because he was quite studious in terms of that. And he picked his opponents very well. The other British fighter I would say that Ricky Hatton was probably the closest to was Barry McGuigan. Thinking about it, very similar styles actually.
Well, he was Irish.
But I think he was Northern Irish. But I would say that they both had kind of like, they were kind of both aggressive fighters without being brainless. That makes any sense? And they both had that thing where they were very, very good for a few years. Ricky, do you think that the stuff out the ring, where he would go on benders between fights? Do you think that caught up with him in the end, or not?
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, you can't let your weight go up and down like he did. He'd go on a bend, and of course it was tears of a clown, isn't it? You have the sort of jolly, the comedian, the guy who's the everyman, the guy who means a lot, the man of the people, as they say. And very often it hides something fractured beneath the surface. And that proved to be the case with Ricky. But I mean, don't forget the Mayweather fight. Even though he lost it, there's no shame in losing to Mayweather. But has anyone ever done that apart from Muhammad Ali, taken 25, whatever it was, 30,000 people to Las Vegas and literally drunk it dry? They ran out of beer.
I've never seen that. Lennox Lewis didn't do that. Nigel Benn didn't do that. I'm just thinking of other guys who got to America. Kawasaki couldn't have done that. They didn't have that. But that was the other thing about Ricky, was that he transcended boxing in that sense, and he got the casual fans. He got this army of thousands of football fans basically going to America to watch it. I don't think we'll ever see the like of it again. I really don't.
The Americans couldn't believe it. You talk to people, Max Kellerman, all these American commentators. They couldn't believe it. All the American journalists. It was literally like an invasion. And they were thinking, well, what is it about this guy? Paulie Malignaggi talks about this as well. He said it was just astonishing that this guy connected with tens of thousands of people who were prepared to, most of them didn't have tickets, but they went over there just to support him. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, do you know what the funny thing is? We mentioned Malignaggi, right? Because I remember when he tried his comeback and he fought Senchenko, right? And with the grimace, I knew what was going to happen, right? I even said to a mate of mine, Senchenko's 6-1 in this fight, and he loves a bet, my mate Alistair. I said, get your money on Senchenko. In fact, here's 20 quid, get it on Senchenko for me. I knew it was sad, but I knew what was going to happen. And apparently the story was that if he'd beaten Senchenko, they were going to have Malignaggi 2 and 3. Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't heard that, but Malignaggi won his second title against Senchenko.
Yeah. So what they were going to do, if
Ricky was knocked out by a body punch by Senchenko as well, and of course he loved the hook to the body.
Yeah.
That was at welterweight. Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently if they got through Senchenko, they were going to fight Malignaggi again. And if they got, let's say Malignaggi had won the first fight, the second fight between them, they'd have gone for a third fight as well. because it was just one of those things we were going to do. It was it's one of those things. Look, I mean, it was in a way, it was sad to hear Ricky kind of in tears and upset like he was, because I think he felt that he still had some to prove, which was a shame, because we all loved him, and we knew how good he'd been, and it was a shame that Ricky felt that he hadn't quite proved it, and he still had something. But in terms of what he did at his peak, he was tremendous. We were talking in agreement about Junior Witter. Do you think he'd have beaten Junior Witter?
At the time, I thought Witter might beat Ricky because of the style. He had that wicker bank thing going on, slipping and sliding. But 12 rounds is a long time. A peak Ricky Hatton would have been difficult to hold him off.
Yeah,
2-1 on for Ricky, maybe.
The only thing I'll say about Junior Witter is I think Witter was a seriously good fighter. He was legitimately number 2 in the division for a period. I think that's fair. And I also think that Witter was one of those guys who he liked being hated. Look like Chris Eubank used to, right? Mm-hmm. He seemed to revel in being, that guy nobody liked. And if he'd gone into the ring against Ricky Hatton and said at the end, and everyone had booed him, I think that would have G'd Witter up. I think that would have got him going. And I think Witter might have given Ricky a very hard night. I'm not saying he would have won. He might have won. That's the funny thing. I mean, it's one of those fights where, say they fight each other 10 times, yeah? I think Witter certainly wins a couple and 1 or 2 of them, right? But maybe Hatton wins 6 or 7 and there's a draw in there somewhere, I think with Witter, I don't know, he was, but we were saying, Witter was one of those guys who, he won a world title, he was defending it in leisure centres, and he was fighting good opponents in leisure centres, but for very little money as well. Go on, Joe.
Witter was underrated, and he didn't have the big push that Hatton had with Frank Warren and Queensbury, but he was very, very good. Styles make fights, as we know. I think it'd have given Ricky a lot of problems, certainly for the first half of the fight, maybe the first 8 or 9 rounds. Could he have survived the last quarter of the fight? Maybe. I think he could have beaten Ricky. I'm not saying he would have done it, but there's such contrasting styles that it would have been, I think, a good fight. But if he was fighting Ricky Hatton, he would have been booed to the ring big time, because he was trying to goad Ricky to fight him and saying things to Ricky during interviews. After one of his fights, Ricky turned up at ringside, and there was a bit of there was no real rudeness, but he wanted Ricky in that ring because he knew that's where the money was.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that rivalry at the time, and Witter was British, Commonwealth, and European champion as well, and we wondered about that. And,
he was,
and then he did win a version of the world title. I remember when he fought Tim Bradley. It was funny, right? I remember watching Tim Bradley because we were with a lady friend who Largo will remember, actually. I'll tell you off air. And she kept trying to get my attention, right? And I was like, will you stop and watching the boxing, right? So, and that was when Bradley put Witter down, didn't he, in the 6th? And that's it that turned the fight. That's it that turned the fight in Bradley's favour, and he won on a split decision. And I was like, I think she went off and talked to some other bloke actually. But evening if you're listening. I remember that fight, and Witter kind of drifted back towards like domestic and European level after that. Mm. He did win the British title again when he was quite old, actually, for in boxing terms. Did he beat Curtis Woodhouse for it or something?
Sheffield United player.
Yeah, I'm sure Witter beat Curtis Woodhouse.
So he was actually a successful boxer.
Yeah, he
not
beat
just a boxer.
Curtis Woodhouse won a British title at 140.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
He was actually good, not just.
Yeah, I'm sure Witter beat. I'm sure Witter beat him.
Numbers.
I'm sure Witter beat him for it.
Did Witter Did Witter beat Curtis? You might be right. I'd have to look that one up. I can't remember.
Shall we look it up? We'll look it up now. 1 second. Junior Witter box rec. Give me 1 second. I'm sure he did.
Because he'd have been playing for Sheffield United about 2000, so he can't have got into his boxing career young. He must have got into it at least mid to late 20s.
Yeah, he did get in very late, and he wanted to win a British title. I think he promised his dad. And in fact, he done it. He did it as well.
Yeah. Because he was a good footballer.
He'd probably done a little bit of boxing previously, like messed around. Because for him to pick it up 25 or whatever he did, that's very late to start.
Right, 1 second.
Yeah.
I don't think he did fight. He did fight Witter though. I could be wrong, but I don't think he fought Witter.
No, I'll tell you what. I don't think it was. I'll be corrected, Joe. I don't think it was. He did regain the British title against Colin Lynes, though. So that might be having that mistake.
He was a good fighter. Colin Lynes is a good fighter. I know.
Yeah. Warnock told him to stop boxing because he kept turning up to training with black eyes and stuff. And Neil Warnock was like, "Look, just stop it. You're being paid a wage to play here."
Yeah. I'll tell you, I just looked at that. No, it was Colin Lynes he beat, not Woodhouse. But he did lose it to Frankie Gavin, funnily enough, of all people.
Oh, Gavin beat Witter, did you say?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah, that's surprising.
I mean, he ended up, after he lost his belt, he fought, what was his name? Devin... What was his name now? Oh God! This is what happens when you get older. Devin Alexander. He beat Devin. He fought Devin for the vacant version of the title. He lost, and then he got stopped. I think he had a shoulder injury or a arm injury or something, and he retired after 8 rounds. And that was his sort of last hurrah. Then he went back to British sort of level. And as you say, it was Colin Lynes he beat, unanimous decision. He lost it to Gavin.
Didn't he?
Yeah, he actually lost a prize fighter as well against El Machi. I'm just looking at his box rank here, so I forgot all about that. But it was it wasn't Curtis Woodhouse, it was Colin Lynes he beat. But yeah, Frankie Gavin, that was a funny one. Frankie Gavin, I always thought, like when he was an amateur, like what a talented fighter Frankie Gavin was. He's probably like the Audley Harrison of the lower weights, Frankie Gavin.
Well, he's the only to win an amateur world championship. The only British fighter ever to win an amateur world championship, Frankie Gavin, and he did win British and Commonwealth belts as a pro, but people expect him to be a world champ, and he wasn't. He had no discipline.
No, I heard that. I heard that he didn't really take the sport seriously. Is that a fair comment?
He had no discipline, certainly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you can see that sometimes when people that in terms of like how they look aesthetically in the ring, and you can tell that Frankie maybe hadn't made the sacrifices that the top pros make. We'll say that.
This may have been something I imagine, but didn't Sonny Bill Williams have an attempt at a boxing career?
That New Zealand rugby international.
Rugby league player.
Yes,
I'm sure he did.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
He fought in Australia. Is he in Australia? I think he is.
Yeah, he's from New Zealand.
No, he's a New Zealand winger, wasn't he? In the rugby, and he's a double World Cup winner in both codes.
Yeah, it was from New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah, he had who did he fight? Was it Lucas Brown or someone? Yeah, I'll have to look that up. But he definitely did have a career, a short career.
Probably the most famous one of that ilk was Anthony Mundine, who fought Sven Otka.
Yeah.
Anthony Mundine was a rugby league player from Australia, and his 10th professional fight, he fought Sven Otka, didn't he, for the world title, and decked Sven Otka briefly, but then got decked himself.
Yeah, he got knocked flat. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
But he did collect the world title. Yeah. He has got, believe it or not, he has got a stoppage win over Shane Mosley, which is incredible. Mosley was right at the end of his career, but Mosley had to retire with a back injury.
Was he South African?
Who's that? Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was American, wasn't he?
Mundine was Australian Aborigine descendancy, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Mundine. Did Mundine fight Kessler as well? I thought he did. I thought Mundine did.
All that could be right.
No.
I know he lost a lot. Towards the end of his career, he was getting knocked out in a round by, I don't know, the guy who beat Pacquiao, and it was he was a hot and cold fighter. Sometimes he'd go out in a round, and other times he'd spring an upset.
Yeah. I remember. Was it? I'll tell you, the one I remember watching was. I was having a laugh about, so we were speaking Australian fights. Was remember the one between Danny Green and Paul Briggs, the one where he taps him on the top of the head and he goes down like he's been shot.
Yeah.
Because one of my mates is quite cynical about boxing, and he thinks boxing got quite a lot of fixed fights in it. And I just joked, you don't get up from those,
people say this, but that punch, I remember that fight. He did it in about 49 seconds or something.
Yeah.
That punch hit him right on the front here.
Yeah.
And if you get
on temple,
well, it was in front of the temple. It was sort of on the frontal lobe bit, and it's perfectly feasible that would have, because he was cold. He was going, that opening bell had just rung. That he was a very genuine reaction. It's kind of like the old, second fight with Ali and Liston, which is supposed to be one of the great dives or whatever. Sometimes you get clipped. I don't mean hit hard, but you just get clipped in the right place, and you can go over. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. No, it's been a fascinating couple of weeks in the world of boxing because Canelo has lost. I was just wondering what your thoughts of Canelo are, because he's been has he been found out a little bit? I just wonder with it, because you hear various things about Canelo and his fights, and I don't know what to believe. I'll elaborate further, but what do you think? Do you think he's been well matched and been found out, or
no? He's Bud Crawford is 38 and Canelo's 35, but in terms of chronologically he's 3 years younger, but in terms of miles on the he's a lot further down the line than Crawford, although Crawford's had quite a long career himself. I in my preview I said that I thought Bud Crawford would win a decision but would get robbed. But that was I thought he would probably, because it's Canelo, the cash cow, and so on and so forth. In fact, he clearly won a decision, wider than I thought it would be. I think Canelo has gotten a bit soft lately over the last 2-3 years. He's been fighting good opponents, undefeated, Jaime Munguia, Berlanga, they're not bad fighters, and he's been outpointing them. But he's had things his own way for so long, and he's done so much in boxing. He's had such a long career that I thought he was kind of there for the taking. I thought the size would matter. In fact, it didn't, because Crawford looked pretty much as big as Canelo, and in the clinches looked quite physically strong. So it didn't surprise me entirely. I thought he probably could outpoint. If they were the same size, I would have picked Bud Crawford all day long and twice on Sunday. I mean,
right? Yeah.
But Canelo, with that he's a very strong, bullish guy. He's quite short. He's 5'8", which is not big for a super middleweight. And in fact, I think it's a little bit shorter than Crawford, maybe half an inch shorter. But I thought if the size doesn't matter, Crawford's going to win, and I thought he probably would win. I didn't think he'd win that convincingly as convincingly as he did, and I thought he might get robbed. But thankfully, the right person won.
Yeah,
I think it's Canelo afterwards was very, very generous towards Crawford, and was very, I'm fine, no problem. He's a great fighter. All credit to him. Blah blah blah. That's always suggests to me that someone is at the tail end of their career and they're like, okay, I lost. But the older you get, the more philosophical you become. You get a bit softer. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe that's the case with Canelo.
Do you know what? One possible opponent for Canelo in the not so distant future might be Chris Eubank Jr. I kid you not. That's a possibility. and that's a fight that's happening again. So Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn too, which I thought was an absolute joke of a fight. But you know what? The fight actually turned out to be quite good. And so they're having it again. Have you any thoughts on that one, Joe? Because
the first fight, I thought this is a gimmick fight, and what with all the palaver with the failed drug test, I just didn't care about it. And then it happened, and I totally got into it. I totally got into the event itself. I thought the fight was brilliant. Not elite level skills or anything, but I thought it was a good old tussle. I loved the drama of it, Eubank Senior turning up and all that jazz. But I thought, how are you going to follow that? And this rematch, I mean, I did a video earlier today or yesterday about the undercard, and this is on pay-per-view, don't forget, or pay-per-screw, as I like to call it. I mean, I never buy pay-per-view. I watch it, using other means. But to me, it's that. It'll sell, but it's going to have to go some to be half the fight it was. I remember the fathers fighting because the rematch was, it was an okay fight at Manchester. It was an okay fight, but it didn't have the drama and the sort of visceral violence of the fight.
No, compared to the first fight was one of the greatest British fights there ever been. It's iconic as well.
Brilliant.
And the second was, look, if it was a standalone fight, you'd say it was a decent fight, but it's a bit like, The Godfather 2 or, sequels to movies. It's often the case, isn't it? That they're just never quite as good. It's just one of those things. And
Godfather 2 was better than Godfather 1 for me, but yeah, I'll take you.
Okay, it's fine. But 99% out of 100 sequels are not as good as the original.
I agree.
And it's the same with the boxing. And the Eubank Ben 2 fight was a decent fight. It was a decent fight, but it didn't have all sorts of things that happened as well. Since me, like Chris Eubank had that tragedy with Michael Watson. He didn't have that. He didn't have that kind of raw thing where he was prepared to knock a guy's head off, and for understandable reasons. And so it was not quite the same fight. I don't know what to expect from this, but I don't know. It's one of those where if Conor Benn loses again, it's kind of hard to see where he goes from there. But they could be cashing Conor Benn out. I don't know. It could well be that this is as far as he ever goes in the sport. For Chris Eubank Senior, Chris Eubank Jr. even, it could well be that if he wins this fight, why not throw him with Canelo? That could be his swan song,
Well, he's just turned 36, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're cashing out Ben. Ben will probably go back down to 154, even if he wins. Try and pick up a belt there. He says he can make welterweight. I don't know about that. Maybe he can. What was he, 28?
Not now he can. No, that's
I mean, I would expect him to stop off at 154 and split the difference, but yeah.
But it does remind you of what great fighters their parents were, really, because they were just like they were people I grew up watching boxing on, and they were both great in their own different ways, and you kind of long for the days when it was on ITV on a Saturday night. Largo, have you any thoughts on this? Or watching Ben and Eubank growing up?
No, my dad would have been watching it, but I think because my dad always wanted me to actually do boxing, I think we would have had a closer relationship, probably a better relationship than we did have if I'd shown any interest in boxing. So me and boxing, it's always been a bit weird. It's always been a bit of a weird one.
Right. I've been a few years older. I've been a couple of years older than you. I was a kid watching those fights growing up, and I remember watching some of the earliest fights. I remember watching were the Eubank and Watson fights. I remember those, and Ben McClellan as well. I remember Ben and McClellan was the first fight I ever remember. I had been about 12 at the time, and I got the enormity of what was going on in front of my eyes. I was watching something that was at first, magnificent and iconic and a fight for the ages, and then turned tragic at the end. But I remember watching. I remember realizing, because when you're young, when you're watching it and you're watching these fights, you don't realize that you're watching something absolutely astonishing at the time. And I just the next time I remember watching anything like that, where I'm going to remember this the rest of my life, was probably when Kawasaki fought Lacey. Just for the sheer kind of masterclass element of it, I remember thinking, I will never ever forget that night. Because going into that fight, people thought it was like a 50-50 fight, and Kawasaki was in sort of danger zone, and we were all very nervous. And as Brits, I wanted Kawasaki to win, and like it gets round one, and he wins round one, and you breathe a huge sigh of relief, and it gets to 2, 3, 4 rounds in the bank, and you're thinking, oh my God, this he's going to win this thing. And then it turns out the absolute massacre is. And by the end, I actually felt very sorry for Jeff Lacey. And even by about round 9, I was saying, why is Jeff Lacey's corner not pulling him out? Because he's taking an absolute hiding. Just as a humane, compassionate person, I'm thinking, if that was my fighter, I would pull him out and save him for another day. And I actually think his corner let him down badly that night, Joe. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? What are your memories of that fight?
I remember that fight vividly. Yeah, I agree with you. He could have been pulled out. He's floored in the final round when he just through sheer exhaustion. But that was a masterclass by Kawasaki. Getting back to Ben McClellan, that remains the best fight I've ever seen. I think the tragedy that followed it overshadows what an absolutely extraordinary fight it was. That fight, I mean, including the aftermath, encompasses everything that is dramatic, and it stripped down the most basest elements of humanity, stripped right down. Or it's humanity stripped down to its basest elements. Perhaps it's a better way of saying it, but everything was unbelievable. I mean, the fact that Ben was floored. I actually had money on Ben to be knocked out in the first round, and I was counting on that because he went through the ropes.
He did.
And then the referee, Alfred Dazar, I think his name was, he
the French ref, wasn't it? But if you get knocked out of the ring, you get 20, not 10, don't you?
He was on the ring apron as well. He wasn't out of the ring, but you get 20 seconds. That's right, under WBC rules. But the referee gave him quite too much time to recover. He was very fussy, very sort of officious. And then I remember the second round when Ben came back and was clocking McClellan. I thought, oh my God, and I don't know, I might have mentioned this in one of my videos, but at the time it's really weird because I went to a gig two days before that fight, and I met someone, and we exchanged phone numbers, and this girl phoned me up and said, oh, do you want to come over? Because she was from Doncaster, but she was staying in London. And she said, do you want to come out, go out? I said, well, I'm watching the fight, which is, most of them would say, well, piss off then. But she said, well, no, we'll watch it. Come round. So there was her and her mate, and some other girl was there, and one of their boyfriends or whatever. And I was just bouncing off the walls. And she must have sat there thinking, who the fuck is this geezer? This lunatic up here. Yeah. But it was an astounding fight. It was just absolutely extraordinary, and it is the best fight I've ever seen, ever.
Yeah, it was an amazing fight. You're right about the first round as well, because he goes through the ropes, doesn't he? And he lands he kind of lands on the edge of the apron
in slow motion. Motion.
And he gets up, and the thing that when you watch it back is that Ben is doing that thing where he's ducking and swaying. Now, you're not allowed to go below the waist, are you, when you duck and sway? And Ben's quite blatantly breaking the rules, if we're honest, right, on this one. He's ducking well below the waist. And he's
below the waistline.
Yeah. He's down. He's down. His head's down where it was when he hit Anthony Logan. Do you know what I mean? So it was quite lucky to survive round one, actually. I mean, you're nearly cleaned up. But Ben was one of those strange things. He had that same thing, Joe, that Carl Thompson had, in that he was quite fragile in the chin department, but he also had amazing powers in recovery. I'd say Tyson Fury has that as well. He doesn't have the best chin in the world, but he has that knack of recovering quickly and getting back into it. And the thing with you know, and it was down. Ben was down again in the 8th, and we didn't. It's like we didn't care, you know. And you know, it was. I mean, I don't know how it would have gone because Ben was getting right. It was right back in the fight, and it was quite close in the 10th.
Ben in the 8th. Ben in the 8th was he was on the floor, and I thought it was going to be stopped. He was hurt, and he did his little ducking and swirling routine, but he got caught in a corner, and he was threw a left hook back to sort of keep the referee at bay, really, just to say, look, I'm throwing back. And he missed, and he threw himself into these sort of adjacent ropes. So yes, it was a knockdown, but it was more a case. It was much of a case of him missing with the hook, a wild hook, throwing himself into the ropes. But the referee was right to call it a knockdown. And then, of course, in the next round, you saw a big clash of heads, and I think McClellan took a knee to sort of say, and that's when everyone knew, okay, the body language is really bad. Now Ben's got a chance, and then in the 10th, it was by that point he had brain damage, and it was all over. You know.
There's some point in the fight as well, though, where McClellan starts blinking a lot. Have you picked that up as well?
Early on, and pushing his gum shield out as well.
Yeah. So there's something not quite right, I think, and
he was blinking.
I don't. Yeah. So you know, it was an amazing fight and a tragic fight at the same time. Very like Watson and Eubank 2 was. They were both brilliant fights with tragic endings, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What boxing have we got coming up in the near future, Joe? Just before we move on to other things.
Well, Fabio Wardley and
Joe Parker, isn't it? Is it Fabio Wardley and Joe Parker coming up soon? Yeah,
that's an interesting one. Derek Chisora's, we don't know the opponent yet, but he's going to have his 50th fight in December, maybe.
Right. I hope Derek Chisora gets a nice, easy fight he can win and bow out with a victory. I do, and maybe even a nice stoppage victory for him. Get one of those Eastern Europeans over to roll over in a few rounds for him.
He won't stop at 50. He'll carry on after 50.
Well, is Danny Williams still fighting or not? Shall we look?
He is, actually, yeah.
Didn't he beat Tyson in like 2005?
2004, I think. Yeah, Danny Williams beat Tyson 20 years ago and he's still fighting now.
Williams, Tyson, isn't he? I remember a COVID fight.
Tyson quotes fought Jake Paul, which is one of the biggest fucking travesties. Sorry for swearing. One of the biggest travesties I've ever seen in boxing. I was annoyed when that happened. I'm annoyed that
didn't he have a boxing match during the lockdown?
Was that the exhibition against Roy Jones? I think he did have an exhibition against.
I don't know
who
it was against. But he was in remarkably good shape for someone of his age.
Joe, did he have an exhibition? Is that right? I didn't hallucinate that. Did he have an exhibition?
I think Largo's thinking of the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. exhibition.
Yeah,
around about COVID time. But he's against Jake Paul. He looked every second the 58 years old man, or whatever he is. He's a year older than me. So he's 58.
Right.
And that goes on their box rec records. Can you believe it?
I know. That was the thing that really did me, Joe, was the fact that they sanctioned that as a proper professional fight.
Yeah.
What
do they call it? White collar.
I was pulling my hair out, where it was just like getting annoyed about the fact that was being.
Fight?
No, it was Largo. It was sanctioned as a proper professional boxing match, and it will appear on both guys' box records.
What? Forgive me for asking an obvious question, but what criteria do you need to meet to be a professional contracted boxing match? Because I know Mickey Rourke had a go at it, and
actually
no, he wasn't. There was an actor called Brian O'Neill who was in a Kubrick film called Barry Lyndon, who was
That's
a
right.
Golden Gloves.
Right. So you've got to set yourself up as Joe. I'll have a go at answering this question. You've got to set yourself up as an official sanctioning body. Might be the state of Lancashire, might be the state of like the Luxembourg Boxing Federation, whatever. And then you can give licenses to fight. And if you can pass fighters as fit to fight.
What do you need to do to meet the criteria to gain that license?
I suppose. Go on.
You first of all, you'd have to pass all the medical tests.
Yeah.
You'd have to be issued with a license. So America is a good example because you've got 50 different states, and this is done state to state. So if you're refused a license in one state, you can go to another state. Very often the southern states are the ones that will dish them out like confetti. And then once you've got that license, it is recognized as a proper professional fight. Mickey Rourke did have professional fights. They were extraordinarily low level, but they were sanctioned by a state recognized sanctioning authority. Kind of like over here, you've got the British Boxing Board of Control.
Yeah.
Or very often, if people are refused a license over here, if they have their license taken off them, they'll go to like a Luxembourg or somewhere and get a Luxembourg license, maybe Ireland. Dillian White, when he failed his last test, went over to Ireland. And I think he fought under, was it a Texan license or something in Ireland? But so long as you've got that license, and so long as someone who is an authority that's recognised as being a legitimate body, licensing body, that can go on your box rec record. White collar fights don't, because they haven't got licenses. They're just, it's just like you turn up, they've got some sort of cursory medical thing they do, and two guys have a scrap.
Is
Largo, go on.
I was going to ask, because I keep hearing, you hear a lot of people who come into professional wrestling, and the actor I was talking about, Ryan O'Neal, they come through something called Golden Gloves, and then they realise, okay, I finished like third or fourth in Golden Gloves, probably not going to be a great professional boxer. Go and do something else.
Golden Gloves is an amateur system in America, and again, you have different states have different Golden Gloves that you can win it several times. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll be a great professional, but it's a feather in your cap. It's a good standard of amateur. I mean, Ryan O'Neal, you're right, he was a fighter. By the way, Barry Lyndon is one of my favourite films, magnificent film. But
it is.
There have been other fighters other actors who have done similar things. Tony Danza, who was in, I don't know if you remember Tony Danza in Taxi. He was a fighter. And I'm trying to think of others. I mean, a lot of actors from the old days they had little short boxing careers. Jimmy Cagney he was a fighter for a while. There is this, and it goes the other way, because sometimes boxers become actors.
Go boxing. Yeah. The interesting thing you mentioned about the Ryan O'Neal, Barry Lyndon, is that you actually have one of the first, I think, boxer versus wrestler fights where you've got the actor Ryan O'Neal fighting Pat Roach, Indiana Jones, and Alvida Saint-Pet.
Yeah, Pat Roach. That's right. I remember that.
He was in all the Indiana Jones films.
Yeah, all of them. Was he really? Pat Roach, was he?
Yeah, he was in all three. A different person, but in all three.
Okay. Well, he'd get a lot of work at Elstree, wouldn't he, Pat Roach? Because I remember when I worked for Securica, I'm going back 35 years, but I remember one of the guys there was a chef, qualified chef, and for quite a few years he was the chef, one of the chefs at Elstree Studios. And back in the 60s and 70s, he would get all their autographs, and Pat Roach was one of them. He said Pat Roach was always there. He brought his book in once, full of fucking. I mean, you would not believe the name doing this autographs in this book. This was obviously decades before selfies and all that business. Unbelievable. And he said the one that I wanted and I never got was John Wayne, because he never came over here. And I said, was there ever anyone who refused an autograph? And he mentioned, I can't remember who it was, but he said the guy was really polite. He just said, "I'm sorry, I don't give autographs." Most of them did. Just a quick one about the sanctioning bodies, by the way. I'm just going to say Largo. Do you remember when David Hay and Derek Chisora had that fight at the press conference after Chisora fought Vitali?
Yeah.
And they both got banned by the British Boxing Board of Control. Remember that? So Joe will no doubt remember how they ended up fighting each other in Britain.
Well, they both had their licenses suspended. So what Frank Warren did was they both got licenses from the Luxembourg authority. Went over to Luxembourg, and that's just one option. I mean, you mentioned Danny Williams. Now, Danny Williams was banned. He had his license taken off him in 2009?
10, yeah.
So, and he's been fighting on a Latvian license, a Lithuanian license, and he stopped originally he quit, and I think he had 9 defeats on his record. He's still fighting at 53, whatever he is now, and he's got something like 33 defeats on his record. And he's losing to people. He's fighting school gymnasiums for $1,000 or whatever, and losing to people who, this is the equivalent. It's like we all know that if Jake Paul fought the 1988 Mike Tyson, he would have lasted 20 seconds. It's the same. Danny Williams is fighting these guys who are just, a universe. The Danny Williams who beat Cali Meehan or beat Audley Harrison the first time would have been doing these guys in a round or two. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. He was a good fighter in his day. Danny was a really. Of course, you may well have seen the Mark Potter fight where his arm became dislocated, and he knocked Potter out with one hand. And he had but he had some cracking wins. Did Williams? Tyson being the biggest name one, but then you'd have when he beat Harrison, when he beat Caliby, and some of his British title defences as well. He was a good fight. In one round. Well, Mills Lane is the one that's hard to look past. I liked his style. He was a former Marine, a very short guy, diminutive guy, maybe 5'8" at the very most, 5'6", probably more likely. Completely no nonsense. If he was in there with two heavyweights, he'd be the biggest presence in the ring. And he refereed a number of he was actually I say that he was the referee for the bike fight, Tyson Holyfield, the second one. That's the most famous one. But he was consistently good and absolutely fair. He used to say, "I'm firm, but I'm fair." And that's what I always look for in a referee. Others that you would mention, well, if in Britain, I mean, the famous one was Harry Gibbs from when I was first started watching boxing. There have been some that have been not so good. Mentioning no names. What do you think? What do
you think of Mickey Van, by the way?
Oh, Mickey Van got a lot of flack because he picked. Was he the one that had it a draw, or he went for Holyfield in the first Lewis fight as a judge? Right. And he got a lot of flack for that. And he said afterwards, he said, when I totted up my card, I thought, oh, Christ, I made a mistake here. He admitted it. And you can have a bad day at the office. But as a referee, I didn't think he was that bad. You know, he was all right. I always sort of cringe a bit when I hear Howard Foster's name being mentioned.
Well, Howard Foster likes an early stoppage, doesn't he? Who's that guy?
Yeah. The first Froch Groves stoppage is one of the worst I've seen ever.
I always thought Richie Davis was quite a no-nonsense referee as well.
Richie Davis, yeah. And I'm trying to think of the name of the. Do you know what? This is how bad it gets when you're knocking on a little bit. I worked with this guy when I worked for De Beers Diamonds in the late 80s. I can't remember his bloody name, and he refereed the Michael Watson Eubank fight when Watson was injured. The fuck was his name?
Oh, right. Shall we? I'll dig it out for you.
Yeah, let me have a look, because I'm going to have to have a look at this, otherwise it's going to drive me balmy. I actually worked with the guy. Would you believe this? He was a security guard. Just a second.
Michael Watson. I'm sure. Right, 30 bouts. That's in KO. And career in 1991. That's him. He was a referee. I've got here. Supervisor Ed Levine. Referee Roy Francis.
Roy Francis, thank you. Yes, he was very good.
Right, Joe.
Very good.
Yeah, was it Roy Francis?
Roy Francis, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It was, and he was good. He was a very good referee. I mean, he had that horrible fight where Michael Watson was badly injured, but again, a no-nonsense guy who's really fair, and the best referees are the ones that are not biased. I mean, I know that's kind of stating the obvious, or what we think might be the obvious, but there are some bad ones as well.
I'll tell you what. I remember one, Richie Davis I mentioned, right? And it was one of those when they used to have boxing on ITV4. I remember Richie Davis throwing Matthew Barney out for holding. That was very funny. A persistent fouling against Danny McIntosh. That was and he kept warning him. And he kept saying, "Stop grabbing hold of him," right? And he must have warned him 10 times and knocked a point off and then thrown him out. But the other one I remember Richie Davis he might have been on the same night, and there was an Eastern European guy who came over, and he was obviously here to lose, but it was actually a really, really good 4-round fight, right? And he raised both arms at the end, and he gave him a draw, right? Now I just thought, like, typically you give it like in that situation, you give it to the British, the home fight, you give it in 3-1 or something, wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? On the scorecard, yeah, like house fighters, they get this. Anything close, a house fighter will generally get. I thought that was really big on it, actually, because it was
the referee. The final was the referee the only arbiter of the fight. Was it one of those?
Correct. Yeah. So it was it's a 4-round fight. It's a four-round fight. It was close. It was very close. I thought he was going to declare the house fighter, the British house fighter, the winner, but he raised both arms at the end and scored a draw. And it just caught my eye because you never see that happen, because if generally speaking, they'll let the house fighter off with a narrow win, won't they?
Yeah, and I think one of the worst decisions I've ever seen was one of Campbell Hatton's fights against a young Spanish.
Yeah.
Whose name?
That was the Nicaragua. That was the guy from Nicaragua, wasn't it?
No, he was a Spanish boy. He was a Spanish boy, and it was a 4 or 6 rounder, and the kid didn't lose a round, and they give it whoever that was. I'm going to look this one up as well, because it was scandalous. It's one of the worst decisions I've ever seen.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was from Nicaragua. I love Virtual Fiver on it with you. It was from Nicaragua. 1 second.
Sonny Martinez. Yeah, Sonny Martinez, who was from Spain. There you go. So you're fine.
You're fine.
So the referee there was Marcus McDonald. Now, Marcus McDonald has not been a bad referee, but Sonny Martinez, well, the Campbell Hatton would never be considered to have won that fight as long as he's got a hole in his ass, because McDonald gave it by 1 point, and Campbell didn't win a round, and that was a 6th round.
Look, I've watched the fight, Joe, and I scored it 5-1
to Martinez.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, 5-1, I can live with that. That's being generous to Campbell, but yeah, that's fine. But I mean, come on, we're not idiots. Even a casual boxing fan can look at that fight and say, well, obviously that guy's won. And then let's just say you're someone who goes along with his mates. There's a bunch of you think, let's go to the York Hall to watch a fight, to watch some fights. We've never been before. No, you've got a group of people there who are potentially going to become serious boxing fans. They're going to say, well, this is fucking brilliant. I love it. Let's go again. They see something like that and they think, what the fuck? I'm not watching this crap. Look, that guy won and he got robbed. This is ridiculous, So, but as far as, I mean, this can happen on the big stage, because the worst refereeing I've ever seen, the worst individual refereeing performance I've ever seen was Louis Pabon against, this was Vladimir Klitschko against Alexander Povetkin. And Klitschko should have been slung out long before the fight finished for holding, pushing down on the opponent, holding, grip, he with that jab, right hand grab thing that he had going on. That's why it was so damn boring. But he was grabbing the guy, fouling him repeatedly, and Pabon was just letting it slide. Terrible referee. Probably because there was Russian, some, shall we say, rather unusual Russian influences in that fight. But come on, man. That was the biggest stage of all. That was a world heavyweight title fight. So from leisure centre or just small hall venues right up to the top, if you see that sort of thing, it's going to put people off watching boxing. Understandably so, because they're going to think it's bad.
There you go. Right, well, it was Spanish then, anyway. Right, where did Nicaragua from? Who knows?
Well, I just looked. He was actually born in Uruguay.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. There you go.
Was born in Uruguay.
No, I've watched that fight a couple of times. I've always scored it 5-1 to the Spanish kid. Always have. Yeah, I mean, I was just watching a few boxing matches in the week, and probably my worst bit of officiating I've ever seen for judging was the 1988 Olympics. That was the worst thing I've ever watched.
Well, the Roy Jones duck cookie.
Yeah. Oh my god! That makes you throw up. So it's
that's the worst decision, amateur or pro, I've ever seen. And my god, there have been some stinkers.
Yeah.
He didn't win a 5-second period of any round.
No, he got the crap beaten out of him. Did he have to take 2 standing counts as well? Right. In a pro fight, it would have been stopped in the second round probably.
That Korean guy, when they announced the decision, the look on his face is like, what? He was embarrassed.
Yeah.
He held his arms up like out of sort of stunned disbelief, but he was and he actually gave Jones the medal.
The medal he did. I mean, it was a funny one really, because I don't know if people remember this, because I was talking to somebody about this about a few years ago, because Kendo, the Korean guy, he fought another household name, a British household name, in the quarterfinals. A guy called Vincenzo Nargiello. And Nargiello was a funny one because he was a very talented fighter with like a fragile temperament. We'll call it that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Very talented lad, but he didn't like it up him. Right, we'll say that.
True.
Right, as Reid and Warhol like that proved, if you got him in the if you got him in the trenches, he didn't like it, and he'd start throwing himself on the floor and rolling around, and right. But he was a very, very good fighter technically, and he had some proper pop in his punches as well. Nargiello was the only guy who ever get Henry Wharton as well. Ben and Eubank didn't, but Nargiello did. He hit hard, and he did something nearly as bad to Jones as Jones did in the quarterfinals. He won very clearly against the same guy. So Nargello beat Kim as well in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
And they declared Kim a split decision winner in that as well. And Nargello did his thing, and he's in floods of tears, right? And he's doing a Nargello, he's throwing histrionics around the ring, and it's quite entertaining. But he has been robbed, you know. He has on this occasion, he really was robbed. I know he liked to cry wolf as a pro, but he was, he should never have been anywhere near the final. Funnily enough, the second best boxer in that tournament was probably Richie Woodall, wasn't it? Thinking about it.
Sorry, say that again, mate.
The second best boxer in that tournament wasn't the Korean; it was probably Richie Woodall, wasn't it?
He fought Jones. Yeah, Richie Woodall fought Jones. Lost to him.
Yeah, and the series.
Richie Woodall, as a stylist, his style suited the amateurs very much so.
Yeah, I think that was a funny one because I think it was the only one I've seen that fight as well, and I've got that 2-1 in rounds to Jones. I've actually got Woodall winning a round. And he's the only guy I could see who took a round off Jones in that whole tournament. For real. So,
if you look at his style, you can imagine that in a 3-round fight. You can imagine him, because Jones, even at that young age, whatever was he, 18, whatever he was, was a flash and dash, and you can imagine Richie with his very sort of textbook style, you know, threading the jab through and maybe pinching, you know, it's point scoring and all that sort of thing. You can imagine him around you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was the final, really. But you know, yeah, I mean, but that was you know, Roy was. But Roy would go on to be you know, like one of those freaks of nature. I was over at a barbecue years ago, and we were talking about who our favourite, you know, motor racing drivers were, footballers were, snooker players, boxers. And when it came to boxing, I said Roy Jones Jr. was the best. You know, he was a freak, wasn't he, for a few years?
Best of my lifetime.
Yeah.
Best of my lifetime. I mean, he did everything wrong, but did everything right. Because there was nothing in the textbook that you'd recognise from Roy Jones. But at his absolute zenith, he was just about as close to unbeaten as I've ever seen anyone. The only person that comes close in the almost unbeaten, because no one is totally unbeatable, but I mean, Mike Tyson, 87, 88, maybe close. Jones, 90s, yeah, pretty much unbeatable. I mean, and if you'd have told me that he would go on for 15 years too long after he was shot to bits and lose, you know, 10 fights, I would never have believed you. If he'd have retired when he beat John Ruiz, and he only had one defeat on his record, which was avenged with a 1-round knockout, he would be in the argument for who's the greatest fighter ever. Yeah,
that defeat was a DQ, wasn't it? Did he hit Montel Drift then? Did he hit the guy when he was down or something?
Yeah, he hit him when he was on the floor. He was on the floor, but he did a dying swan act, and Jones was out for revenge and blew him away in 1 round in the rematch. But Jones, if he'd retired with just that one defeat on his record, people would be saying that's the greatest fighter ever. Without question, the best fighter of the 90s. Because he carried on too long, way too long, and picked up like 5 knockout defeats and all this stuff. You know, it affects the legacy.
I'll tell you what, before we shoot off, and we haven't even mentioned Charlie Kirk. Maybe it's for the best, right?
Do we have to?
No, we won't mention Charlie Kirk. We won't mention
care less. I mean, I watched his funeral and a bit of it, and it was rubbish. Spock's funeral on Star Trek 2 was
What do you mean it was rubbish? What the hell did you expect?
Like Spock's funeral in Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
The catering was terrible.
It was just a rubbish. It was rubbish. Charlie Kirk, and he was boring as well.
Maybe that's it. Maybe, you know, Diana got Elton John, right? So maybe, like, if nobody likes you, you get like Michael Bolton at your funeral or something.
When a man loves
you know, I don't know. Look, I mean, I know he was a very divisive person. I'll just say one thing. I'll say what I said to you and Joe in the week, and that is that when we start cheering people dying. We're on the road to it. We're on a very slippery slope towards something quite nasty.
Are you allowed to just not give a shit?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, you can say, I think I would like to think that we all agree that blowing someone's head off for having opinions
It's bad.
you don't agree with is bad. All right.
Yes.
But Charlie Kirk, this is just my opinion. If people disagree, that's absolutely fine. Charlie Kirk was a reprehensible individual. I didn't like his views represent
boring.
me.
He was reprehensible. He was weird. His face was too small for his head. He aroused conflicting emotions in me. What can I say?
Well, all I'll say, lads, is that I know you're probably both fans of Jeremy Corbyn, right? And if someone shot Jeremy Corbyn next week, I would find nice things to say about Jeremy Corbyn, and I'd be horrified by the idea that someone would shoot him. I just would be. I just think that I think that I've seen videos of people actually celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and I think it's in very, very bad taste.
I would just say, everybody stop shooting people. Just don't shoot people.
And if someone shoots someone, look, by all means, don't care. By all means, think quietly yourself that nobody had it coming to them, right? But don't go on video. Don't put a video up celebrating it and singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead."
I agree with that in principle. However, if you are a deliberate rage baiter during your life, then you've got to bear in mind that some people are going to, Jeremy Corbyn's never. I know some people hate him, which that's their right to hate him, but he didn't go around being a deliberately provocateur. He wasn't an agent provocateur. He wasn't someone who was deliberately trying to divide people.
And he always believed what he said.
And he was always sincere, and he's got now. Charlie Kirk didn't do that. Charlie Kirk delighted in bear baiting, college students. He never had a debate in him really, because he never debated anyone of any real substance. So if you're going to have that if you're going to build your legacy on that, then when you die, either of natural causes or you have your head blown off, people who perhaps take less of a mature attitude than we would like everyone to have are going to take the piss. And I agree with you, Daz, that it's not in good taste. It shouldn't. I don't think it should really happen. But I can sort of, to play devil's advocate, understand why people do it. It's not right, but he was a thoroughly unpleasant person, and when unpleasant people die, I mean, I quite happy. I mean, I didn't celebrate it, but to me, Margaret Thatcher was one of the most loathsome people of my lifetime, and I was. It's just a shame she didn't die 35 years before she did.
Yeah. Actually, because I remember talking to somebody in Lancaster in the pub about I won't say which. It was actually a social club years ago, and apparently when they heard that a hotel had Margaret Thatcher in it had been blown up, the whole social club were jumping around celebrating. Because they thought, yes, no more Thatcher. And then she's still alive. She went to the toilet.
Right.
No.
This is the Brighton bomb, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The toilet
she was that hated though.
Yeah, but let's be clear. That bomb put Norman Tebbett's wife in a wheelchair. All right?
Yes.
Well, it was his wife, and not Norman Tebbett.
Yeah.
She didn't do anything wrong.
No, but I mean, all joking aside, look, I was about to say that very thing. Okay, look, I despise and loathe Margaret Thatcher. All right, but Norman Tebbett's wife, she was in a wheelchair, paralysed from the neck down for the rest of her life. That's
a pity.
That's horrendous.
Yeah.
That's I mean, if you take someone out, take the right fucking person.
Shame it wasn't Norman Tebbett.
No, come on.
Another person I absolutely despise was Norman Tebbett, but you
can't seriously want someone to be blown up, can you?
I don't want Norman Tebbett and Norman Tebbett's wife. I'd rather it was Norman Tebbett.
Yeah. I'd rather it was neither. Okay, let's not.
I'd rather Norman Tebbett's wife argue with it.
Right? Oh my God! Right.
I'd rather Norman Tebbett had never been a thing.
Yeah,
just not existed. Like, I'd rather Norman Tebbett's dad had just had a wank.
Oh my God, right, the chief
No,
is scared,
I
right?
agree with that. I agree with that. But getting back to Charlie Kirk, I mean, you know, there's two girls who now don't have two little girls don't have a father. I mean,
Yeah.
they probably
Yeah.
loved him. And how's that going to affect them? And also, now that he's dead, they're trying to laud him as some great, you know, some great messiah or martyr even. I mean, it's so, it's such a perversion of what these things are meant to mean.
Yeah, Joe, mate. I mean, like, I've got to be a little bit careful what I say here, but somebody I don't like, had a nervous breakdown a couple of years back. I found that a nervous breakdown, and all I could think was, as far as two kids are concerned, that's mum. You know, there's no point celebrating this. You know, that, as far as two, I know, I might think she's a horrible person actually, but as far as two kids are concerned, that's mum, and you don't go wishing terrible things like that on people. And those poor kids have not got a dad anymore, as you're saying. That's the most important thing and the saddest thing. And Charlie Kirk might have been a great dad to those kids, and probably was. You know, and that's the thing that people, you know, and I think that's gone out of discourse a little bit. We've got this tendency to dehumanise people we disagree with. I think it's crept in. You know, I mean, we've got radically different political opinions. I know that, Joe. But I'd like to think we've always conducted ourselves with dignity and humour. I think, and find little spots where we agree with each other every now and then as well. You know, and I just think. You know, I don't want to live in a world where we want bad things to happen with people who we disagree with. I think that's a very dark road to go down.
Well, I would absolutely agree with that. Having said that, of course, I would point out that the MAGA cult are very, very adept at doing precisely that thing that you're opposed to. They are, and I know that there are people on the so-called left. I have this argument with conservative friends, you know, that they're not really the left, but I suppose in the modern age they are. They're just as bad. But the MAGA cult is through the roof when it comes to.
Have you seen of them in the UK where a guy says he doesn't agree with the asylum protesters, and they just sort of scream nonce at him, and he ends up running for his life, and then someone else goes, "Oh, he's a nonce, and this guy ends up running for his life because people think he's a nonce, just because he said he disagreed with the asylum hotel protests.
But yeah, and Joe, you're absolutely right. I was saying this about what I will call the alt-right, right? And this is a fairly modern thing. I mean, I consider myself probably, by modern terms, a conservative. There's nothing conservative about the alt-right. They're actually quite revolutionary people and quite extreme people in their thinking. And they have all the similar hallmarks of the wacky left, as I call them. You know, there's what I call the sane left, that I consider you to be part of, and then there's the wacky left, and the alt-right, and the wacky left are like two sides of the same coin. Does that make any sense?
It amounts to the same thing. Yeah. I mean, it's like the left. I'm a lifelong socialist. All right. Old Labour, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it. These words almost don't have any meaning anymore because they can mean literally anything. But I consider myself to be an old-style socialist. Now, the modern left, I have nothing in common with them. I mean, and certainly, it's like I'm embarrassed by Keir Starmer that he is the. In fact, I'm not embarrassed. I'm outraged by Keir Starmer that he is the leader of the party that I always supported, the party of the working class person. You know, the working class woman, man. All the things that we take for granted in modern society were won by the Labour movement, and the Labour Party was the vanguard of those morals. That's all gone out the window thanks to Blair, but now Starmer. Okay. Now, when I say this to people, they say, "Well, you know, well," and I say, "But I'm embarrassed by Starmer. Aren't you, as a conservative, embarrassed by Trump and MAGA?" Really conservatives.
Well, I distanced myself from people like that a long time ago. I don't consider them to be my people. I'm so distant. I mean, in fact, if I was an American, I'd vote Libertarian, not Republican. Put it that way.
Well, I didn't vote. I've lived in America. I lived in America for over 4 years. I didn't have the right to vote, of course. But you know, it was bad enough when you saw the whole, you know, the Gore, Bush Jr., election with, the hanging chads, remember that, and all the, the Florida vote and all that crap. That was bad enough. This is off the chart. This MAGA stuff is insanity. And it is very fascistic. Very fascistic if you look at the methods used.
You mean now though is people pick a side and they defend it through thick and thin like they never used to do before. It's almost like they're defending, I don't know, what do they used to call them in the Beatlemaniacs and things like that. It's almost like people pick a side and they follow it like a football team.
Do you remember 25 years ago there was a London? I'll just come back to you as well, Joe. I mean, like we've got the Tory party over here. They're an absolute joke. The Conservative Party is going to have done. I wouldn't wipe my arse with them. And don't get me started on reform either, right? right. So just as a sensible Conservative person, I don't want to spend any time talking about either of those shit shows. They're not worth the time of day. Your point, Largo, was spot on. About 25 years ago, the first London mayor election, it was going to be between Ken Livingstone and Jeffrey Archer. And Jeffrey Archer got done for perjury. Do you remember when Jeffrey Archer got busted for perjury? Right? And everybody, left, right, centre, all came down like a ton of bricks on Jeffrey Archer and said, "You arsehole," right? And you don't see it. And now you get people, and you get people on the right, right? And this is really common with people like our friend Tommy, right? Tommy, I think we can say this without slandering anybody. Tommy Robinson is a habitual criminal. That's what he is, right? He is a serial lawbreaker.
You might be surprised to hear my opinion on Tommy Robinson, but carry on.
Right, but Tommy's defenders will come out even when there is overwhelming evidence that he's broken the law. Right? No, right. You cannot go around defending law breaking because you agree with the person's politics. I think Largo's point's right. I think probably what Largo's getting at. It's like, I don't know what your views on Tommy are. Largo may have got kind of complicated views on him as well, but he's you've got this thing where someone might get caught breaking the law, might get caught with their fingers in the till. Look how long it's taken Angela Rayner to resign or get sacked or whatever happened. It would have been over the same day 25 years ago. You get caught dodging tax, flipping houses, things like that. You're gone. That's it. You know what I mean? And nobody's defending you. And I just think it's one of those things that if we don't defend these things like hawks, then we get the politics we deserve.
I'll tell you something. This you mentioned Tommy Robinson. Let's use this march that was on a couple of weekends ago, right? Now, whether you think there were 150,000 or whether you think there were 1 million there, I don't really care, right? Here's a couple of thoughts that go through my mind. Number one, are all those people racists? No, I don't think so. Are they all xenophobes? No, probably the majority of them aren't. They are working class people with very, very, very sincerely held views or concerns about their country. Okay, so from that point of view, okay, now, but to me, I have to ask, what are they trying to achieve with that march? What is all this sort of flag shagging and roundabout painting? Is it going to reduce the housing crisis? Is it going to reduce waiting lists? Is it going to give some of us a chance to actually sign on and register with a dentist, an NHS dentist? Is it going to improve workplace conditions for people? What about the rolling back of the rolling back of proper jobs rather than 0-hour contract jobs? Is it going to roll? No, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to achieve anything other than I've got a flag. I'm proud to be British. I'm going to wave it. I might paint a roundabout on my way home. I can understand their concerns with proper political issues, but I don't understand what that march was supposed to highlight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think there was supposed to be some sort of patriotic theme about it, and a feeling that like people wanted their country back in generic terms. But you're right. I mean, I've made this point as well that these marches don't achieve anything. And what on earth are they supposed to achieve? Before you start going on a march like this, think about Joe, I've been saying this for a while now. What you need to do is form a little group amongst yourselves locally and get yourselves elected. So that's what you need to do.
Or if you really care about your community, do some fucking volunteer work.
Right? Right. Form a group of 5 to 10 of you and get on the local council. Get 2 or 3 of you on the local council and make a difference that way. Right? Going on marches will achieve nothing. But we're on the same page, Joe. I'm saying that to people, like right-leaning people in London, it will achieve absolutely nothing. It's a day out. It's a few beers and a laugh for certain people. Fine, you have a good time. But you're absolutely right. It's going to achieve the square.
If you go back to the Brexit thing, I was opposed to Brexit. I was Remain or whatever they called them. All right, and I would debate people. Right, but it used to infuriate me when people who said they were on the left were saying everyone who's Brexit is a racist or a xenophobe. What? So George Galloway and Dennis Skinner, they're racist, are they?
Yeah.
Jeremy Corbyn's racist, is he? Grow the fuck up. Let's have a little bit of serious debate about these things, a bit of adult debate. All right. I was opposed to it. If someone was for it, I would discuss it with them. I like to think I would discuss it in a reasonably civilized way, because that's what adults are supposed to do. But now, like with this march, look at it's a racist march. Most of those people that were marching, they weren't racist. They've got concerns. They're just decent working class people. Probably not. A lot of them might not be that well educated, but they're entitled to their opinion, and they've got lives to lead.
Yeah, the thing is as well, John, I think you get the feeling that a lot of people are confused, don't know what's going on, and no longer believe what they're being told. And that's part of the problem. The trust in authority has just gone down the toilet.
And this is where Trump jumped in America, because it was such an appalling shit show. When I lived over there, more than 20 years ago now, it was all bad enough now, fuck me. But that's why he's jumped in. And in fact, that he was interviewed. I can't remember it was 1980s, late 80s, 88, I want to say, where they asked him when he was a younger man, would you ever go into politics? He said, well, if I did, I'd try to appeal to, and he mentioned people who were basically ignorant, stupid, and he said he would use sort of rather sort of hackneyed propaganda techniques. That it's come to fruition because people are so pissed off with the norm that they look to extremism and cultish sort of leadership, the sort of the messianic leader, and they go down that sort of rabbit hole rather than saying, you know what, we got to organise, we got to come together and create our own party. No, it's much easier to sort of say, well, that person over there is using some nice buzzwords, some nice sort of phrases that really resonate with me. And it doesn't matter that he's been bankrupted 6 times, he's been found guilty of sexual assault, and he's done this and that. No, none of that matters. He's my man, and it's almost like like it's a football team you're supporting.
Yeah. Speaking of football, I'll tell you, we've got a few minutes left. Speaking of football, have you ever seen the episode of Satan Greedy where they go to America and Donald Trump, a younger Donald Trump, does the League Cup draw?
No, I've got to see that. Is that on YouTube? I must see
that. It's on YouTube. Yeah, he does a draw for League Cup. Yeah,
that might even surpass the time he met Benny Hill.
Right.
Really? Yeah. You met Benny? Oh, wasn't Snoop Dogg a Benny Hill fan?
Yes, he was a big Benny Hill fan.
Yeah. So there you go. So there we go. So
no, I feel like, but wasn't Benny Hill actually like? Didn't he have a massive intellect? He could speak several languages and.
He might have done. I know he was an intelligent fellow, very reclusive as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. Interesting guy, actually.
It's quite funny to hear Donald Trump say Nottingham Forest will play Queen's Park Rangers. It's there you go.
Oh, I'm going to have to dig that out on YouTube.
That was the
Littlewoods Cup.
Yeah, the Littlewoods Cup. That was the peak of his career, I think. Yeah.
Like Littlewoods catalogue back in the day that you were given at primary school. Like,
I'll bet Donald was looking at the underwear section there, no doubt.
What Littlewoods? Right, okay. No, you won't look very sexy. If you buy your underwear from Littlewoods, you won't look very sexy, will you? Right. Darling, I've been to Littlewoods, leave it on.
I forgot about Littlewoods, man.
Yeah, I tell you what, some cracking teams won that. Luton Town won that, didn't they?
Yes.
And
Didn't
then
they have the plastic pitch when they won that? Or was that
yeah, that's right. Luton Town had the plastic pitch, and that was in the late 80s until 91. And it's funny, really, because the first season that they didn't have the plastic pitch and they went back to grass was the season that they went down. And that was the last season it was Division 1 before the Premier League in 92.
Right.
Here's a quick trivia question. Who is the only team ever to be relegated despite having the advantage of a plastic pitch?
Queen's Park Rangers?
No.
Preston North End.
Yes.
Oh.
It's those, yeah, it's our lot.
Yeah, we should know that.
1993. How on earth do you get relegated despite having a plastic pitch?
If I know I'm being pedantic, didn't they get relegated at Bolton though, the champions?
No, but we had a plastic pitch that season.
Yeah.
And we didn't win enough games at home to look. If you've got a plastic pitch, you should win enough games at home to make it a formality, really.
Yeah.
Are you Preston North End fans?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think Largo is Preston North End and Rangers. I'm Preston. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So but we managed to get ourselves relegated despite the fact we had an obvious advantage. It was awful. That pitch was terrible as well. It was the old school plastic pitch. It was like an old carpet on rock, and like we had players who got knee injuries. The ones who had a bit of skill. Anyone who had any skill on that pitch got themselves injured because
Neil Treble.
Neil Treble had no skill at all, and they don't wash him out there. Well, he might have scored a goal on the plastic pitch. Neil Worley scored on the plastic pitch as well, and he was soon off to Runcorn.
No, I mean, he scored regularly, Neil Treble, didn't he? Fairly regularly at the time.
Not for us, he didn't. He did. Neil Treble did put that 70-yard ball in for Mike Conroy in the cup match.
The FA Cup.
Yeah, but that was on grass. The plastic joke, believe it, the plastic got dug up. The last game ever on plastic was a playoff match against Torquay in '94. So we got relegated. We got in the playoffs in what was Division 4 the following season. And the last game we won against Torquay on the plastic. And there were people running on the pitch and helping themselves to bits of the carpet.
We'll tell you, you and I have a mutual friend. I won't say his name because he might not want me to say his name. But I remember in primary school him saying, Neil Treble is on loan from the SAS.
Neil Treble was in the army, I know that.
Yeah, but I don't know, it was because it was this pre-internet days going, yeah, Neil Treble, yeah, he's actually on loan from the SAS. I'm sure he played
for Scunthorpe United or something like that.
Yeah.
We signed him from another 4th division team.
Yeah.
Yeah, we filled a trolley with like shit players when Beck was managing us. It was quite. I don't know if you know. I don't know if John. I don't know if you're a big football fan. If you remember John Beck, we had Gary Naylor on last year. He's a big football journalist as well. And we were talking about John Beck used to play the same kind of football that Wimbledon played in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
The hoof it, yeah, the cruise missiles.
Mm.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking to watch. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But
was he quite abusive though, John Beck?
John, sorry?
He was like an abusive person. Like he did things that were quite unpleasant to players.
But he was not a throw buckets of cold water over people.
Yeah.
He was known to be, a bit of a ranter. The one, I'll be careful with my language here because we don't want to slander anybody. The one thing we can say for a fact is that John Beck, after he managed Preston, went to manage Lincoln City, and once before a game he got arrested on the pitch by Customs and Excise for whiskey smuggling. Now, I don't think anything came of it. I don't think, but he actually got marched off by the police. They got him in the dugout. Are you John Beck? Well, it says home team here. you know, it was a bit of a lively character. And there's other stories which are unverified, which I won't repeat on air for that reason. Who's your team, Joe? Who's your football team growing up?
I haven't followed football for years because it just became some sort of international showcase for multi-millionaires. It just bored me. It started to really bore me. You know, all the British clubs are owned by bloody foreigners. See, me and Tommy, we'll sort it out now. It used to be Arsenal. And you were talking about plastic pitches. A mate of mine was QPR fan. And I remember seeing those plastic pitch at QPR because we'd go to Loftus Road, Highbury, and it was Highbury then, of course, and Loftus Road, and I remember thinking first time I saw it, it was Arsenal versus QPR, and I thought, what the fuck is that? That's what they do, hoover it, and Arsenal lost 2-0. So, and then I had the perfect excuse. Well, you call that a football pitch? It was strange. It was a strange era, but football to me was all about, it was a community thing. The clubs were owned by the community, and
somebody on the shop locally or something. Local businessman or something.
I mean, the lower leagues now, that may still apply. I mean. But when it comes to the Premiership, I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in seeing some multi-millionaire, age 22, throw himself on the ground and win a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, the funny one is, Joe. I remember the early '90s. It's funny how that plastic pitch was hilarious. The old plastic pitch. There was a great game between QPR and Newcastle. I think it finishes 5-5. Because some of the goals, some of the goals going in are just like the bounces of the ball over the keeper and all sorts. Were just absolutely freak occurrences. Yeah. But in the early '90s, I mean, like we had up here, we had Blackburn Rovers, and Jack Walker had sold Walker Steel.
Yes.
And he was putting the money into Blackburn Rovers, and all these Blackburn Rovers fans turned up out of nowhere, right? And it was as a Preston fan, it was very annoying, but. Jack Walker was probably worth about 300 million, and probably would have put about 30 to 40 million in Blackburn Rovers. Yeah, I mean, what would 30 to 40 million do now? I mean, you are talking about billionaires now to own football clubs. You are talking about, and Jack Walker was a guy, and it's a similar thing with Dave Willen at Wigan. Dave Willen who had JJB.
But he didn't make any money off Wigan.
No, but he made money off a local business. He was a local businessman made good who bought a football club. I mean, Dave Whelan would be worth pocket change now, even 20 years on. Yeah. Even 20 years on.
Controversial opinion. I actually quite like Dave Whelan.
I have mixed feelings about him. I'm just conscious of the time, Joe. Have you got anything? I'm just thinking. Have you got anything else you want to talk about or add or ask me about or Largo or anything else?
Nothing.
Any big boxing matches? You got Wardley and Parker Wednesday night. Is that in a couple of weeks?
It's not far, is it?
No, I fancy Parker in that. By the way, I fancy Joe Parker in that.
Do you know what? I think Wardley might spring an upset.
All right. Do you reckon? Well, should I have a chance to get my fighter back that I lost earlier?
Well, you might. All right, if you like. Yeah, I mean, you would think Parker would be the favourite, but Parker has looked a little bit brittle. When he gets touched, Zhang had him on the floor twice. But even against Bacoli, seconds before he knocked out Bacoli, he was stunned. And he has got more skills than Wardley, no question. But if Wardley can land, it'll hurt Parker.
Well, it'd be an interesting measuring stick, Joe, of Wardley's power. Look, I get your point about Parker hitting the deck against Zhang, but let's be fair, Zhang has. Yes. He has freakish power. That's right. Yes. Bacoli was a 300-pound lump going into that fight. So one thing he had in his favour was he was going to hit pretty hard. So it was the one thing he had going for him. It was huge in a bad way, but huge. So it'd be an interesting measuring stick of whether Wardley's power goes up to world level or not.
Because he should win. Parker should win. He's got everything on paper. It suggests Parker will win. But been a bit of activity too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Parker. The best thing he could have done was stay busy, even if it was just getting a few routine wins. You know, he's had some time out of the game, and I don't know. I just think he's got. I think Fabio Wardley's best chance in that fight is early. Personally, I think if Parker can ride a bit of a storm, his superior boxing should take over. But I think it's on the night, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Largo, have you any thoughts on that matchup? Or
None, because I live in Spain, where boxing is probably one of the least popular sports. It's sort of how to say it? The big sports in Spain are football, basketball, cycling, and tennis. Those are the big ones. And boxing doesn't really feature.
What part of Spain do you live in?
Pardon? Sevilla. Sorry, Sevilla.
Sevilla. Okay. Yeah.
Sevilla. Yeah. And I can think of one boxing club in the whole of Sevilla. It's just I would probably MotoGP as well is a popular sport here. Again, snooker not popular at all here.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign off by telling you a bit of fun news that will make you laugh. I think, which is that I almost forgot that I'd done this last night. I've actually signed up to do an audition to do a comedy gig for charity in Manchester. So I'm going to do stand up. Right.
Well done.
So I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's have one joke each from everybody. So who wants to go first?
Bloody hell! I can't think of one off the top of my head, mate. Should have told me.
Right.
Should have told me before.
Well, I'll tell you a quick joke then. So I do jokes about psychology as well, which Joe will like. And I said to Tracy earlier, here's a joke for you. My mate Tracy was talking the other day. She paid me a compliment. She said, Daz, I said, you know so many great jokes about gaslighting. I said, no, I don't. You imagine that. Why did Mr. Gaslight cross the road? He didn't. You've been imagining things again.
I can tell you a joke that a Romanian person I know told me, but it's not appropriate.
Okay.
No reason to tell it, I would say.
All right. Well, I'll tell this is just for the benefit of the time. This is a joke, and it's not your joke, and they aren't necessarily the opinions of yours, like, are they?
Okay.
Or the show.
Would you like to hear it?
Well, go on with that disclaimer out of the way. Let's hear it.
Basically, spoiler: a significant amount of the Romanian population could be described as meeting the the definition of anti-Semitic.
Okay.
Oh, right.
A Jewish there's a Jewish man, and a young boy goes up to him and he says, "Why do so many Jewish people answer a question with a question?" And he responds, "Who told you that?"
Oh, right.
That was what I was told. I did not laugh. But that.
I know far worse jokes than that, but yeah, but okay, we're not.
Romanians have a different sense of humour. It's translated from Romanian into British, into Spanish, and then told to a British person.
All right, strictly in jest. You know that old joke, don't you? My mate's half Jewish. He's got a two skin, right?
That's not bad. Anyway, I said to the bloke with no legs at the bus stop, "How you getting on?"
Oh, no.
Oh, do you know what I saw today? Don't laugh. Do you know what I saw today? I was on the metro and I saw a guy in a wheelchair. I did not laugh, and he only had one leg, and the one leg he had was broken. And I was just, after he got off the metro I was just like thinking, that's bad luck. That like you've got one leg and that's a bit of bad luck. So you lose it, and then the one you do have, you break it.
You should have said to him, "I've got nothing against your broken leg. Unfortunately, neither of you."
No. What's that old joke about the guy who's involved in a terrible accident, a car crash or whatever, and he's in hospital, and the doctor comes up to him and says, "I've got some good news and some bad news." He goes, "What's the bad news?" He goes, "We're going to have to amputate both your legs." He goes, "What's the good news?" He goes, "The guy next door wants to buy your slippers."
Yeah, well, that was some material for you, Daz. And
Well, what's that? I'll think of this one as well. Was the girl who goes for the tuck downstairs, and she gets the anaesthetic and she wakes up. She had the operation. And there's 3 bouquets of flowers on the table. She loses the first bouquet for. "Oh, sorry, it's from your mum. Just hoping the operation was a good success." He goes, "Oh, that's lovely." "Who's the second one?" She goes, "That's your husband." She goes, "Can't wait to get you home for obvious reasons." He goes, "What about the third one?" He goes, "That's from the guy in the burns unit." He says, "Thanks to the new ears."
that's a good one.
And on that note, unless anyone's got any more, right? We'll thank our guest, Mr. Joe Stunner. Thank you again as always.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Always, the pleasure and the privilege is ours, as a great man would say. Top man. And we'll, who knows, we'll have a series 3, we might not. We might not commission ourselves for one, who knows. Like History Today off Newman Badil, if you remember that. That's you, that is. And Largo, thank you, mate. And I'll tell you what, we'll get another cracking guest lined up for next Friday. If you can think of anyone else. It's been great to be back. We've had a bit of drama recently, which we'll talk about in the green room after the show. Great stuff. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And see you for the next one. Night, everybody.
Cheers.